last winter where they drove around in trucks, and maybe even some of the fire trucks drove around as well. And they got a really positive response from it. And I think they're trying to do the same thing again, give people something. We don't know where we are. We may be, who knows what the fall is going to be like, but I think it worked last year, and they like doing it, and we're going to try to do it again.
Yeah, there are troops involved. Just had, yeah.
That's the hoopla.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it's a ton.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
That
approve
is
the
exciting. Yeah.
parade.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you guys need to approve it, or you'll do it separately?
We don't have
We
a
already-
quorum.
Yeah, we don't have.
No, but so you'll do it.
We've already approved
You
it.
already did.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the police
Um,
already reviewed it as well. That's what their comments are on here.
Motion to approve the village consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you guys don't have forms, so you're not doing any business stuff anyways.
We have a meeting tomorrow night.
Yep.
Busy meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Terry, want to come to the table and chat with us about your interest in the Affordable Housing Board?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to serve on a board like this. So tell us what prompted your interest.
I think I was reading a story in Hudson Valley One about affordable housing in the area, and they mentioned in the article that the village had an affordable housing ordinance, and you had an affordable housing commission to deal with the ordinance. And I have some background in affordable housing that goes back some years. I mentioned in an email to Ariana that I had served on the Board of Commissioners of a public housing authority. And I also had spent a lot of my career working in the city of Syracuse in workforce development. And in reading your ordinance, I'm not sure you call it an ordinance, but anyway, chapter 132.
You can use the word ordinance.
Village code. So yeah, if
It's
you're
kind of a
ordinance.
synonym for law, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, I noticed that, that some of the major tasks of the commission are to look at rather personal information about families to try and determine eligibility. And I had spent many, many years in my career setting up systems to do that, training staff to do it. We did a lot of it. Let me put it that way. I mean, Syracuse is obviously bigger than New Paltz, so there were many, many, many years of determining family eligibility for workforce development programs. So I certainly am very familiar with that process. I thought the ordinance was very well written in that it laid out the criteria that the board would have to use to determine, those kind of eligibility issues for people. So there's that background, and being on the Board of Commissioners of a housing authority really brought to the forefront of my awareness of the need for affordable housing in America. And I was there in the 1980s. At that point, HUD was still very, very much involved in trying to fund public housing authorities and trying to fund public housing. Now, they had privatized a lot of it. A lot of it had gone to the Section 8 program. But the housing authorities were still being supported by HUD. I think in the ensuing years, HUD has pretty much abdicated that role. And I think that's a shame, but that's for another conversation. But the point is, being on the Board of Commissioners really gave me a feel for the need for affordable housing, what affordable housing means to a family, what it means to a community. And it means a lot. I mean, there's part of me that says any family that doesn't have a safe, sanitary, and decent home over their head, they are so far behind the 8 ball, they can't make it up in any other way. You can't correct all those problems with mental health issues. You can't correct the problems of juvenile delinquency. You can't correct all these problems if there's not a place to go home to at night that's safe, sanitary, and decent. So anyway, so I do have a feel for affordable housing. I really do feel it's important. I think the ordinance is well done. I commend the village for doing such a thing those years ago. As I said, I was a city manager in New Jersey. It's a whole nother career, but anyway, there the issue of affordable housing was all top down. The state went to every single municipality and said, you will have that many units. It was brutal. It was awful. I mean, there were many, many communities in New Jersey that had no room for even one more unit of housing, especially on the beach communities. They're completely built out. You couldn't build a house if you wanted to. You have to knock one down and build another one. Yet they were being mandated by the state. You must have X number of units. So communities got into selling units to other communities and trying them off to others. So it was a mess there. Here, it looks like you folks have been able to, make a local decision. How does it fit New Paltz? And that's great. I think that's wonderful. So that's why I'm here. I do have a long background in public administration. I'm certainly glad you approved the parade.
Thank you.
Before we open up to any more questions for Terry, what spot do we have available for Terry on the Affordable Housing Board?
There's a seat that's open.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Is
And
it
there's no
something that was
alternates.
recently, a seat that was recently vacant?
I believe it was
Vacant?
Rebecca Rotzler's seat.
Okay,
So it was a little while now. Yeah.
okay. So any follow-up questions?
Just one more thing. I looked at the roster of members on the website. And in interest of full disclosure, I am a renter in town. I rent at the Ridge. And I saw the name Debbie Flynn on the, as a member of the board. And I don't know if that's my landlord. Is Debbie Flynn a principal in the Sea Kill Development Corporation?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, full disclosure, I'm her tenant.
Okay.
Now, if that presents a problem for you, look, I don't want any problems for anybody.
No, I think that would only create an issue for her if she had, because they have affordable housing units at the Ridge. I mean, it's a different process. Well, because my understanding is basically like the Affordable Housing Board reviews applications and makes the list available to landlords, when they have
Yeah.
units.
Yeah, I don't see any problem at all. And usually on like our level of government, it's all about like the transparency and just the notice that you just provided. And so thank you for that.
Right.
And for doing your homework. Like, thank you. Yeah, on that. Yeah.
Any other questions for Terry?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for pointing out the importance of that foundation of having a home and how that could affect so many aspects of a person's life without having that stability. I think that's the crux of it, and it's truly, I think housing is a human right, and I think it's so important to really drive home that message. I think it gets lost for some, and not seeing the importance of it. Thank you.
It's been a real struggle for the past 30 years. There's no question.
So Terry, how long have you lived in New Paltz?
Well, I've lived here full time now for about 2 years. Prior to that, I was here part time for about 5 years. We spent summers here. My son and his family live here in town. So we spent summers at his house. So we were here for about 5 years through that. And my son has been here since he came to school. So he's lived here for over 20 years. So we've been through visiting New Paltz for many years.
Does your son live in the village or in the
Yes.
town outside
Yes,
the
he
village?
does. Yep, he lives in the village. Yep, he's a teacher at the high school.
That's awesome.
So I know who your son is then.
I think you do. I know you know my grandson.
Yeah.
because you said otherwise.
Well, I don't have any questions, just because your first response just answered everything I could have asked, so thorough. And those are such cool, just to be a dork, such cool experiences you have, so thanks for sharing them with us.
Thank you.
Great. I motion that we appoint Terry Dolan for a seat on the Affordable Housing Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just so you know,
Zan.
it's a 3-year term.
Okay. That's fine.
We see you afterwards.
Yeah.
And you're in it now.
Yay.
No, thank you so much, Terry.
And we're gonna jump ahead. Now we have, I want to pull Mark Blower to the,
Thank you, Terry.
No, good.
thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
Mark's with us. Mark, this way you can take off. Do you want to walk us through these items on our agenda regarding our CDBG project?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Myself and Nicole and Nancy discussed the last 2 days extending the deadline for responses on our approved June 2021 Small Cities Grant, where we had advertised for engineering and administrative consultants. I realized in speaking to them that we were a little slow in getting out our outreach to MBE and WBE firms that might be interested. And in abundance of caution, I suggested we extend the time period for responses by 2 weeks until August 15th, so that we can ensure that any firms that might want to be interested in submit will have a full 3 weeks to submit to us. So the original deadline for responses was July 22nd. It's now going to be August 5th. And Nancy and Nicole have the legal notices to go into the Freeman to that effect. In addition, following up on the last meeting where we had our public hearing for the small cities application for this year, I'm suggesting that we do the resolution that's on the agenda to commit a portion, about 5% of the total project, through local funds, through the sewer fund, in order to be more competitive with this small cities round. Even though we were one of the lucky 17 that did win, all indications are that in order to win again, applicants that contribute some money to the project are going to do better. So that's why I'm suggesting that the village board contribute $47,000 as part of a $965,000 project in order to continue the work for sewer relining and sewer replacement in order to continue complying with the consent order. So in effect, the grant request would be $918,750, and the local contribution from the sewer fund would be $47,000. The commitment is obviously null and void if we don't get the grant, but the resolution that you see in front of you demonstrates to the state that we're prepared to put money into the project. And I'm suggesting that we approve that tonight so I can include it with the application due at the end of the month.
A motion that we move the resolution regarding the $47,000 from the village towards this project.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I'm going to sign off, folks.
Okay. Perfect. Do we have any details on the skid steer purchase?
We don't, and I thought about this and I wasn't sure if anybody knew anything, but this was definitely put on here like months and months ago as
Yeah.
something that was like
Right.
looking forward, but we did not get details on it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
because I know that Joe reached out to the company that was going to sell us the skid steer and then also pay us for the used skid steer that we own to offset part of the cost. He provided me with an update recently that the price of the used skid steer actually went up a little bit. So let's just get updated quotes from the dealer for the skid steer, and then updated details about how much we would receive for selling our used skid steer, and put it on the next agenda.
Sounds great.
the next item has to do with, we had a request from the property owner at North Front and Church who was interested in repairing their sidewalk. The challenge that we have there is that it needs to be done to DOT specs, which requires engineered plans. So we had our engineer provide us with an estimate to see how much it would cost just to prepare the plans. So just plans alone, forget about the construction of the sidewalk, would be $4,000. So I believe what we need to do is we need to relay this information to the property owner. Because the way our law is written is that the property owner is responsible for the sidewalks on their property. And then the village has the right, but not the obligation, to contribute towards the projects. So why don't we make a point of asking the property owner whether they received a quote from a contractor. But I think they may have received a quote, but I don't know that it was a quote to install sidewalks that would be to DOT specs. I mean, the challenges that we face is that North Front Street is a state highway, not a village street. So let's
Sounds like a good plan of action.
have a conversation with that property owner.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the next item is we have a draft of the law that Alex has spearheaded to amend our housing standards. Alex and I brainstormed with our attorneys today about how this law would work, but I'm gonna hand things over to Alex and she can explain, where the idea came from and what we're looking to accomplish.
All right, so this is, basically a proposed law to amend our Chapter 129, which is where all our housing rules and laws are in our code. So it's no secret, you all hear me say this, like 73.4% of our community is renters, and we were totally in a housing crisis before the pandemic, and it is even worse right now. Like KT would say, it's on steroids. I don't even have a good analogy. It's just been horrible to exist in. An average of 2.5 human people in our community have reached out to myself and or the Landlord Tenant Relations Council for help. Tenants asking for help because their lease was ending and they weren't being given an opportunity to renew where they were living, and so many other scenarios, and rents keep going up in between tenancies. And I'm not telling anyone anything we don't know, because the majority of the community, even when you take out the census tract that includes the college campus, is in fact renters, and this is what we experience. In 2020 alone, I lived in 3 different rentals in this community myself. So this has a couple different parts to it. One part would amend the rental registry law that we have on the books, we've had for quite some time, that requires all, rental properties, including short terms, to be registered, and basically adding a part in there inspired by Syracuse, actually, where that's been in place for a little while up in Syracuse. So I figure I could recycle that to make it so if you are found to be in violation of the rental registry law and have tenants and you have not registered it and have not remedied that failure to comply with the law, you cannot file an eviction proceeding. And further, the tenants would not be they would not have to pay rent during that time that you are renting to them illegally. of course, that would all mechanically work out in the courts and be determined by judges at the end of the day. But that would give us another, tool in the toolbox, and hopefully encourage anyone out there who does not have a legal registered rental to, hurry up and figure out how to comply. So that's one part. And then the other part is about, the right to renew your lease, also known as good cause eviction. And so basically this part, it would add a section to Chapter 129, and it would prohibit evictions without good cause. And so it would basically define what good cause is and create like a mechanism, like that's a roadmap that is for everyone in the community to follow. That I know a lot of our good landlords do this already. My own landlord communicates with me and I with him all the time. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me if something were going to go on, he had to, reclaim the home at the end of my next lease for his family to move into, and therefore he would not be renewing. I would know that because he's a good landlord, but in other instances, tenants might not know that until it comes time to renew. And that's just a, example from my own existence. And so it basically would codify like good communication, good community, and help solve this problem that we keep seeing in our community where, we're having many, many people being displaced. Not everyone has, friends or family, that they can stay with. And not everyone has the ability to move out of this community. I, for one, chose this to be my forever home when I moved here in 2003 for college, for so many reasons, one of which, being able to be a part of a walkable, vibrant downtown, where everything you could ever want is like right here within walking distance. You don't need to have a car, So a lot of these folks who keep facing displacement because of, a landlord wanting to not renew with them and start a new lease with new tenants at a higher price. Or, we keep seeing often people who are not students being also priced out of their rental because I guess folks see, a student with student loans as more security or something. I don't know. There's all these different scenarios, but people keep getting priced out. A lot of them don't even have like a car, which is required in Ulster County, unfortunately, at this time to like travel to places to get to work and school and so on. And it's, so basically just trying to address all those different issues. And it's cool because we passed a resolution earlier in the year. It was the one that was had a flashy title, it was resolution to cancel rent. But turns out like that's not really what I meant, but like no one's rent was canceled. It was more of a resolution to have New York State pay your rent if you need it. I will make sure I don't use flashy titles again. But in that resolution, we supported a bill that was proposed in the New York State legislature, but it didn't pass. And that bill was good cause eviction. So I took a lot of the language from that bill, but then I more so took my inspiration from, City of Albany that has this legislation going through the process right now, and really retranslate it into village terms, because obviously we're always running into the issue of being a village and not a town, not a city, not a county, not a state. As much as we feel like our own country sometimes. So I made it work within our own laws, and also I want to make a note that I made it work within the context of the assumption that we will be passing the ADU law. So like it would apply, for example, like owner-occupied premises with less than 2 units. That might seem funnily worded, but it literally, I just tried to make it reflect our ADU law and make sure we're, continuing to support that kind of, awesome affordable density that we need, to keep people in their homes and to, maybe create even some more perfect little homes connected to people's current buildings. Some grounds for removal of tenants. If you, basically if you screw up your lease, like this is not anything that makes it so you can just be a bad tenant. So it goes both ways, like no bad actors, will come out of an agreement. Okay. So if the tenant has failed to pay rent, that was due like for good reason, and it lays out what that means, and also cites the 2019 state law regarding like retaliation and all of that. Gives basically a roadmap to that end. If you violate your lease in like major ways, and of course not in a way that like if your lease was illegal in the first place, but it basically defines all this reasonable stuff. And what else? If you're, violating laws, if you're basically, if you're like messing up your obligations in any way, or there's at the end of your lease term, like the landlord needs to recover the possession of the house, of the apartments and stuff, or the building, because of familial, like people need a home. So that's partner, spouse, parent, child, stepchild, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and so on. That's covered. What else? Basically, like it defines something that like has been for too long amorphous, and because of that, we have like again, an average of 2.5 individuals who are either displaced or in severe risk of being displaced, like truly like housing unstable folks in our community since, and that's stat since March 2020. And yeah, I think that's a good summary of it for now.
Yeah, I think that was a very solid summary. And
It's not the best, defense of my thesis. This is what I've been working on like this whole time. Like not the only thing, you guys know that, lots of things, but like for like months and months and months, like really like trying to figure out how to solve these problems. And I feel like so confident that like we really can like at least begin to address these problems by codifying, just what is good cause.
yeah, I like the word amorphous that you used, because I think that's exactly what we're trying to address, is that if we have a process or a set of guidelines so that tenants and landlords know how the process works, it makes everyone less anxious. I feel like this is very similar to what we did when we were updating how security deposits could be returned in a specific amount of time. We were taking action to attach a number of days. I believe we were originally considering 14 days, and then we changed it to 21. And we passed that law, and subsequently New York State created their own law, so ours was no longer needed. But during that conversation, one of the reasons that we were doing that was to basically codify and declare a process. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. If you are a good tenant who pays your rent, who abides by the terms within the lease, and you want to stay in your home, you could very well be subject to a rent raise. This is unfortunately not a rent stabilization law in any way, but it provides you with some protection in that the landlord can't simply ask you to leave for no reason. There has to be a reason. So I think what we're trying to accomplish is just the establishment of a process. So tenants know what the process is, and landlords know what the process is. And from our experience, it just seems like when you can point to some guidelines, it just helps everyone feel more comfortable and less anxious. And then there's less confusion, and that's the reason we would considering a law like this.
Yeah, and also I have to add, like, Landlord Tenant Relations Council is like, that's, one thing that's super unique to our village code and to our village. Sorry, Stana, I don't mean to keep facing away from you. The Landlord Tenant Relations Council, it's a group of volunteers that we appoint, 3 landlords, 3 tenants, 1 neutral party, a bunch of alternates, and like, you know, they're not lawyers, they're not legal services of the Hudson Valley or Legal Aid Society. Like, they're not equipped to like mediate in like that kind of legal sense, but they can help you when there's like a law. Like, they can share links, and this is what we do. Like every day we're sharing, like, here's the Attorney General's guide. Like, here's a plain English breakdown of like what your rights and what your responsibilities are to landlords and to tenants, you know, and to anyone considering being in either situation or advocating on behalf of one, you know. We can't do that when there aren't guidelines, when there's nothing on the books. Like, there's nothing that we can do as a village to even like point people in the right direction to get help with these kinds of scenarios. Like, there's just nothing there right now, you know. Like, there's a lot of ideas, but it's not real until it's in the law. And we need this. We need it so bad. The eviction moratorium is ending pretty soon. And yet, you know, Delta variant is right there. It's here. It's not even around the corner. It's here. And so, you know, if the past year, I don't even know how long it's been, if the past whatever of my life is any indication of like what we're going to see in the time to come, we are going to have even more displaced individuals than I can even fathom.
Thank you for all your work on this. It's so important, and thank you for taking all this time and collecting all this great information. I mean, you said it, it's communication. It's helping to further facilitate communication between landlords and tenants, and just, I don't know, hope for things to be resolved in humane ways, because these are people we're talking about. So thank you.
I know, we had an offline conversation about communication. Is there an appropriate place in such a law or an ordinance for guidance, benchmark standards for communication?
Like, so timelines are usually like the appropriate approach. You know, timelines and, you know, being able to say like, you know, written, you know, we could say written notice. More than that, like a template would be like veering not into like our authority from my understanding. But that is like what, like basically, if we had a law, the Landlord Tenant Relations Council and like anyone else who wants to help out could help create those templates and put them in the zines that we give out, you know, at the open air market and on campus and stuff, you know, to help people with that. You know, this is what you say, you know, like it's 6 months out, like here's what you want to say to your tenants, you know, et cetera.
I'm thinking more if part of the law itself. I mean, if a party isn't participating with those benchmarks, those timelines, that standard, then that's something else to stand on rather than guidance that, I don't know, is that an appropriate spot for, is there an appropriate position for that in a law like this?
Wait, so for what?
Say, for example, you know, a landlord must provide 90 days notice to the tenant when they choose not to renew. A tenant has 30 days to respond to that notice, or they're forfeiting their right to renew. I mean, things of that nature in terms of repairs, you know, that sort of thing. Because what happens is people get into a zone where, you know, nothing's working, nothing's being followed, and there's no benchmarks for people to say, because time, a week for somebody might be a very, very short period of time, whereas a critical time for somebody else. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. So I tried like to build a bunch of those timelines in there, you know, and that's why, you know, the gentleman that was here earlier, you know, I was trying to say, you know, make sure you look at this and let me know if there's different timelines that would make more sense, because there are a bunch in here. Let me find this example, but like, you know, except like where the owner landlord has notified the tenant in writing of the owner landlord's intention not to renew a written lease not less than 5 months in advance of the non-renewal date, and the tenant consents. You know, there's different examples like that throughout here. So I think it does make sense to kind of create those timelines. Like that's what we need, you know, because otherwise, you know, otherwise I don't think there would be much to this. It would still be amorphous, and we want to get away from that. Yeah,
The whole objective is to be specific as possible.
exactly. So, and of course, like there are like state laws, like still, dictating different kinds of notice, and those still have to be followed, of course, and that's also in here. There's also a chance for, it kind of clarifies, like, you need to like let your tenants know when there's a problem, like, and so, so if the tenant's filing, like you can, here's grounds for removal. In one section is they're violating a substantial obligation of their tenancy other than the obligation to surrender possession and failed to cure such violation after written notice that the violation cease within 10 days of receipt of such written notice. Provide, however, that the obligation of tenancy for which violation is claimed was not imposed for the purpose of circumventing the intent of this article. So I think that little bit is good because, it establishes, and that's what like a judge would need too if it got to that point. But hopefully it wouldn't have to get to that point, and it would be both parties reaching out to us, Landlord Tenant Relations Council, for some help and guidance, and we'd be able to get a link to E-Code 360 and be like, this paragraph, like in plain English, it means like, you need to let your tenant know they're violating things and they have 10 days, or did you do that? Like that's something you want to find in your records, because when you prepare your case, you need that. Yeah, I think that's like a good handleable thing. But yeah, absolutely. If there's other such timelines that like aren't in here that would be like prudent maybe to be spelled out, we should, consider those for sure.
Small subchapter timelines, I don't know how you want to do it rather than having to search through, paragraphs that maybe be helpful. I don't know.
I wish like laws could be written like that. But yeah, I feel like almost what you're getting to is like once like we have our final version, I'm hoping next meeting, like we could, have that completely ready by to go to public hearing. And of course, at public hearing, it still is, like it's not a law yet. We want to hear from everyone. But I'm hoping once we get through it, I want to have like the people's version, because that's so helpful where it's just the bullets. Yeah.
We have a question regarding this. Has the proposal for this local good cause eviction been discussed with the Landlord Tenants Association? And then we also have a public comment that was not able to be made in person, even though the person was here.
Oh, okay.
On the screen.
Well, with the Landlord Tenant Relations Council, the mayor and I only just got to conference with our attorneys today during my lunch break, just so everyone knows. I have not gotten a chance to share because I came straight here from work. But that's an obvious next step. I didn't want to share something if it was not like if I wrote it completely wrong. I want to make sure this is something that fits into our code, and at least the mayor and you guys like were cool with me kind of moving on to sharing it with like everyone on earth, even though it's already shared with everyone on earth. It's in the agenda, but like actively sharing it. Yeah. But it is something that we have all discussed, since basically March 2020. So obviously it's been multiple iterations of individuals like volunteering in that time. So that's actually pretty cool. That means like a lot of people have heard me kind of pontificate on this, and that it seemed cool. What was the comment?
A question about the draft law.
The
Or-
comment is yet to be made. Robin wants to speak. I don't know if it's specifically about this.
Who wants to speak?
Member of the public who
Oh.
joined
It's from
during.
Nobody Leaves Mid-Hudson, right?
Yeah, hi, how's it going, everyone? Thank you so much for the time. I want to thank the council and everyone else for giving me the chance to speak. Yeah, I was there earlier at 7, but couldn't seem to find the entrance to the meeting hall, so I had to get back home to jump on the Zoom. But thank you all so much for your time. My name is Bravin, and I'm with Nobody Leaves Mid-Hudson. If you're not familiar with our work, we're a grassroots community group fighting to create a Hudson Valley that works for ordinary people. And we have members in the village of New Paltz, across Ulster County, and in cities like Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, and all around the Hudson Valley. Your colleague just introduced probably the single most significant piece of legislation that can address the housing crisis in the Hudson Valley. That's a crisis that's been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Folks have lost work, and gentrification accelerated as wealthy people moved here from New York City, from out of state. And greedy landlords took advantage of these conditions by jacking up rents, rapidly replacing family homes with commercial activity and luxury housing. During this year's legislative session, the state legislature had an opportunity to pass good cause eviction and address this crisis, but they failed to do so. And now there's a looming eviction catastrophe as the moratorium is going to expire at the end of August, which is going to leave, millions of vulnerable people across the state at risk of eviction. And so community groups like us, like Citizen Action, like People's Action, the Housing Justice Coalition, are appealing to local leaders like you to step up and address this crisis. So we implore you to look into this legislation and pass it. The bill would affirm tenants' fundamental rights to housing by protecting them from unjust evictions as well as unconscionable rent increases. And reducing housing instability not only strengthens tenant rights, but also the entire community. It'll reduce municipal costs by getting rid of the lost tax revenue, unpaid utilities, and the costs associated with services for homeless people, which occurs when we have runaway evictions. It also protects the physical and mental health of tenants and their families. And, housing insecurity leads to all sorts of cascading problems that come from it. And creating good cause eviction would help address that. And it also just strengthen the integrity of neighborhoods by reducing turnover and ensuring that families are able to stay in the homes that they've lived in for years. Moving forward, we're going to have our members that live in New Paltz, as well as experts associated with the coalition, provide public testimony in favor of this law. And passing this law in New Paltz, as I mentioned, has been supported by several of our organizational partners, including People's Action, Policy Link, and Citizen Action. The last thing I would say is this, the state legislature really failed to address this crisis when they had an opportunity to pass good cause and chose not to take it. But local leaders can pave the way for the rest of the state by passing this law on the municipal level, and really ask that you take the opportunity to do so. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions, thoughts from the board? I really actually enjoyed our conversation with the attorneys today. Where Alex presented the draft idea that she came up with and gave us a little bit of history on other communities that were considering similar laws. And, our attorneys, just like good attorneys do, said, did you think about this? Did you think about this? What about this? What about this? And I think that's how you flesh out an effective law. And, they're going to do some additional research to see if any of the other proposed laws from other municipalities that are similar to this have received any challenges, or if there's any other things that, we should bake into this law to make it even more robust. I think we're definitely headed in the right direction.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay. So the next up is item number 5. Michelle, you want to provide us with an update about what we're considering here?
Yes, this is a resolution to support September 22nd as Veteran Suicide Awareness and Remembrance Day, as well as the Suicide Awareness and Remembrance Flag, otherwise known as the SAR flag, to be the official state flag. I'll just highlight a couple of things here. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has reported that on average, 17.6 veterans a day die by suicide. And what's important to note that the latest data lags 2 years behind and therefore does not account for the coronavirus pandemic and its fallout, which we all know mental health experts have warned may be causing even larger increases in the rates of mental distress and self-harm among veterans. So there are two bills right now that we want to support. Assemblywoman Eileen M. Gunther's Assembly Bill A6975, which establishes September 22nd as Veteran Suicide and Awareness Remembrance Day to honor the fallen and their families and provide hope to living veterans by showing that we as a community and country care and that efforts to help are available, as well as Assembly Bill 6200, which states the New York State law is amended by adding a new section 92 to designate the Suicide Awareness and Remembrance flag as the official state flag to raise awareness to this cause. Just wanted to add that if you are a veteran or know a veteran in need of help, please contact the Veteran Crisis Line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's open. 1-800-273-8255 and press 1 to talk to someone. Or you could even send a text message to 838-255 to connect with a Veterans Affairs responder. And if you may recall, we did have Kevin Hertel here, what was it, 2 years ago. It was certainly a cause that then Senator Jen Metzger greatly supported as well. So it's in assembly now.
Thank you so much.
So I'd like to make a motion to support these this resolution to support the Remembrance Day as September 22nd, as well as the Suicide Awareness and Remembrance flag to be the official state flag. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Is there a Senate sponsor?
So Jen had introduced in 2019. Where is it at on the Senate side currently?
I think it passed.
Didn't it pass?
Yeah, and now it's in assembly.
Yeah, and it was Senator Hinchy who, carried it.
Oh, so it happened in the most recent session, or
Yeah,
how
so-
does that work?
So Senator Hinchy, took on a number of Senator Metzger's bills for, because obviously our area, very closely related districts. Thank you, Senator Hinchy, for doing that. This is something I know Senator Metzger cared so very much about. Last time I saw her was actually at a funeral for one of our very dear veteran advocates, Carol, Blue Water Navy. She was working on this issue so hard until her last day. So so it's passed on the Senate side, and Assemblywoman Eileen Gunther has it up on the Assembly side, and hopefully they'll get it through soon. And we have a flag, don't we?
Upstairs.
So, we'll keep celebrating in the meantime and remembering and memorializing.
Maybe on the 22nd. There's a flag here.
All right, so the next item is a motion that we move bills and claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And planning board liaison update?
Yes, the planning board met last Tuesday, another major meeting, 3 hours in length. This was probably the second or third 3-hour meeting that the planning board's conducted. So thank you, planning board members and Chair Linton for hanging in there. It was basically a seeker review on New Paltz Apartments. All the consultants that have been engaged to advise the planning board were present. There will be a public scoping session for July 20th, and that's going to be held at SUNY New Paltz. I think that's at 7 o'clock, where everybody can come in and offer their input, if you will, and listen to what the plans are. There are a couple of things that were reviewed during that 3-hour meeting. Dennis Larios was there, the engineer. He asked if the applicant's still intending to connect to the municipal system, and plans to assist with providing updates to it. But he also recommended that the applicant provide alternatives to connecting to the municipal system if that's possible, as a precaution. Mr. Larios was also looking for a stormwater report. The applicant also stated that the applicant must be clear about what infrastructure will be maintained by the owner or other entities such as the village. One planning board member encouraged the applicant to consider alternatives to fossil fuels. And the board agreed that it would be prudent to ask the college, SUNY New Paltz, if there would be a plan to increase enrollment based on approval of this project. So those are sort of the bullet points of that meeting, and the review will continue. And that's my report from the planning board.
Excellent. And we had a ZBA meeting last night.
I
Didn't we?
don't have an update. I had a conflict last night. Two meetings
Okay.
at the same time.
You can always, give the chair a call too if you feel like, that's a quicker, easier way.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Sounds good. Anything else from the village board, or it seems like, actually, I do want to go into executive session. We won't be taking any action. But we could probably anticipate this meeting adjourning once we go out of, we'll go into exec session. So I imagine we can go ahead and turn the cameras off.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to go right into the minute.
Personnel.
Okay.
The elected officials. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So is this where we ask Terrence to leave the room?
Did you say your reason was for the executive session?
To discuss personnel matters.
You don't have any place to go, do you?
No.
Well, as it happens, I will have to wait because I do have questions. And they will be lengthy and inconvenient to delay you, so I will wait until after your executive session.
How do we?
But
I
then
think
we
we
can
can just
shut
shut
this
this
down.
off. Yeah.
We don't adjourn. The meeting will just die its own natural death.
No, you'll actually have
Once
a
we-
witness to adjourn for once.
In person.
The
if it
the
was.
only
We'll
thing
be here
is,
when you adjourn.
if Stana wants to stay,
Oh,
everybody
yes,
else will leave.
Stana should stay.
You could bring the Zoom
Do you
closer.
want to do one of you want to log into the Zoom on your computer so Stana can be part of it, or just call her would be another option?
Or
on
yeah, actually,
speaker?
Stana, why don't you just call my phone?
Okay, cool.